Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pro Wrestling Straight Shooter. I'm your host, DJ. I want to thank you guys as always for watching and for coming back. If you made it through the last couple episodes and you came back again, thank you. I appreciate that. If you're a new viewer, welcome aboard, man. I want to jump in. I'm a little, I'm a little bit late to the party on this, but I wanted to kind of. Last week, I wanted to talk about the Alexa Bliss segment from Raw a couple weeks ago, and I really had a hard time kind of getting my thoughts into something that was even remotely cohesive as well as streamlined. I think I've managed to do that. And I want to talk about this, and if you're unfamiliar with the segment, a couple weeks ago on Raw, they had a segment. It was a backstage segment with Alexa Bliss. Guy knocked on her door to come into the dressing room and cut an interview with her. He comes in, and she's topless. I mean, obviously she did the cover-up. You didn't really see anything. And there was this uncomfortable moment. You came back to the commentary booth, and there's Corey Graves with his jaw hanging down. It's like, oh my God, I almost saw her naked. And that's the key, almost. And in my opinion, after watching the segment, you really didn't see anything that you really wouldn't have seen on any given night had she been wearing a ring gear going to the ring to wrestle. And like clockwork, Twitter and Facebook melted down about it, and there was the obligatory, oh, it sexualizes the women, and it just set women's wrestling back 20 years. And I have to tell you guys, I cannot more wholeheartedly disagree with that sentiment on a number of levels. There were a lot of people out there that were offended by it. Okay, I get it. It was a very risque segment. It was a bit objectionable, depending on on what your thought process is, and it was very much reminiscent of the Attitude Era, but I'm going to go on record as saying it was nowhere near as bad as anything that women were subjected to during the Attitude Era. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need to go back and watch it, because what the WWE are currently doing with the women is leaps and bounds and light years ahead of what they were doing back during the Attitude Era, and I think these women then and now would agree with me in that sentiment. Getting back to the segment with Alexa Bliss, a couple of takes that I, listened to and just was shaking my head at was the one that it set women's wrestling back 20 years. And I have a question for everybody that does that, or who says that, or who feels that way. How come WWE is the only company who, when they do something risque, they do something, a bit outside the box, they do something like that, they're the only ones who are setting women back 25 to 30 years? How come when you take a show like Game of Thrones, who has consistent nudity, consistent sexual situations, and some of those sexual situations aren't necessarily consensual sex, and in some cases it's incestual, but a show like Game of Thrones is suddenly critically acclaimed and award-winning, but WWE, somehow or another, it's garbage. And I don't understand that mentality. And not that I have a problem with Game of Thrones. I absolutely love the show. But at the end of the day, they're both TV shows. And there's this fine line with people where, okay, we know WWE's not real until it's convenient for it to be real. And then all of a sudden, these women are being coerced into it. And all of a sudden, they're not actresses and actors, portraying parts. They're real people that are doing real things. And to me, that doesn't compute in an industry that you guys already know is entertainment. And if it's good enough for a show like Game of Thrones, why is it all of a sudden taboo when WWE does it? Somebody please explain that to me, because I'm definitely missing something where that's concerned. Another take that I took out of this was, and again, another one that I wholeheartedly disagree with, and I will explain more in depth, is this sense of, somebody posted, if the women can do it, when do the men start doing it? And it's, implying that there's this sexualization of the women, but there's no sexualization from the men. And again, I would disagree with that argument, and here's why. Think about what the men wear to the ring. There's most of the guys on that roster, at least WWE, and I would argue to say throughout a large majority of the wrestling industry, are well-oiled, well-muscled, in great shape, and wearing next to nothing when they come to the ring. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason in the industry why they call those guys body guys, because they're attractive, they're aesthetically pleasing, they look good without a shirt on, they look good, they come to the ring in essentially underwear, leaving very little to the imagination. I don't know if you've really paid attention, and I know you have, and I'll get into that in a minute. If you've really paid attention to what some of these guys who wear just like the little trunks to the ring, it leaves very little to the imagination. And it looks great on TV, and those really oiled up, well-muscled guys bring in women viewers. And I'm not going to be the guy to ring the, oh, women just watch wrestling to watch, hot guys bell, because I know better. I know there are women out there who watch it to watch the wrestling, who get involved in the storylines, who get involved in the characters. But let's be honest, the fact that they're hot guys doesn't hurt the situation. You think I'm wrong? I'll give you some personal perspective. My girlfriend doesn't give a damn about pro wrestling. She doesn't watch it with me. She doesn't sit down. She tolerates the fact that I watch it. And if I turn it on 9 times out of 10, she'll leave the room. However, when Finn Balor comes out, she plops her little happy ass down on the couch next to me and watches Finn Balor. She sat there the other night and watched NXT UK TakeOver with me. She watched the entire Finn Balor match. Why? Because it was Finn Balor. Why? Because she thinks Finn Balor's hot. Okay? And if you're a woman out there going, I don't think so, I don't think so, stop. Okay, let's stop with that nonsense. Women are just as bad as men are at this. Okay? We need to kill the narrative that sexualization and exploitation is strictly a male on female problem. It definitely goes the other way. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but we need to stop with the narrative that it's strictly the guys and they just want to watch hot women and everything like that, because the women do it too. I'm wrong? Okay. How many Twitter accounts are dedicated to trying to figure out whether or not Finn Balor stuffs his tights? How many months did we sit around and watch Finn Balor drizzle baby oil on his abs and rub it in? And again, I don't have a problem with it. Don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm not, offended by, things like that. And I don't even really, like I said, I didn't even blink at it, but it's out there. And women go absolutely bananas for it. So don't tell me that the men aren't sexualized, because I can give you plenty, and I'm talking plenty of instances where men coming out to the ring in next to nothing drive women absolutely crazy. Hardy Boys, back in the day, doing their thing, blah, 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 blah. They'd go to rip their shirts off because they're fired up and they just get ripped the shirts. That's what you do when you're a wrestler. You get fired up and you rip the shirt off. You can hear every woman in the audience screaming their heads off for Matt and Jeff to tear their shirts off. Sexualization. The men are just as sexualized as the women are. I'm sorry, guys. You can sit there and argue that point with me all day long. If you give me a valid argument, I'll go back and forth with you, and if you prove me wrong or you give me a reason to change my mind, I'll come up here publicly and admit it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say on that one. It took me a little while to get my thoughts out, and I do appreciate you guys for sitting through to the end of that. Again, I love you. If you dig what I'm doing, man, I'm trying to build my audience. As always, share my videos, get my name out there, help me build an audience, help me come up with more topics, and help me expand this. I'll talk to you guys next time. I'm out.